As the election approaches, what is your message to Toledoans?
First, I think it's important that we continue to get out to vote. I also think that it's important that we make educated decisions. So hopefully, um, voters are making use of the resources to read up on candidates, whether it's through some of the news or also some of the print materials that have been distributed right outside the voter early vote centers. So I think that's important that they make sure that they're educated on the issues. But also, after the election, I hope that voters continue to be engaged in civic life. I think that's important that, yes, it's exciting time, presidential election, but it's also important that we remain committed to participating in civic life, especially here in Toledo, Ohio.
Have you already cast your ballot? And if so, what were some of the things you considered while doing so?
So yes, I voted. Actually, my family and I, my husband and I voted. We went to the early vote center, and again, the most important thing that I'm thinking about is how do we move this country forward. Um, we have 2020 has been unimaginable with COVID-19, with the civil unrest due to some of the issues with the deaths of African Americans due to police brutality. And so really, I voted looking to people leaders who are going to move us forward, who are going to take us to the place where we can move forward and make sure our communities thrive.
As a new member of Toledo City Council, what were some of the challenges you faced and are still facing to this day?
So, Jaden, that's actually a very interesting question. So, some of them were very small. I mean, some of them were just how do I adjust to a new schedule? How do I get my family adjusted? How do I get adjusted of the way council works? There's certain ways that we operate as a council, certain rules we have to follow. But also at the same time, we're also looking at voting on issues. So really, honestly, it's been just the small things that have been really hard, kind of getting to this adjusted to this new schedule, but also learning the ins and out of being on council.
What do you hope to change in the city of Toledo, and how do you plan to do it?
So first, I think it's important for people to understand. I think when you serve on council, you are here to serve as the legislative body of Toledo, and also for budget allocation, resource allocation. And so hopefully through those two mechanisms, I would like to make a difference. But a few areas that come to mind, with everything going on in our community, especially when we look at the central inner city neighborhoods, we need to make a strategic investment in our young people, especially our young African Americans. And I think that is very important. I think also there's a great opportunity in Toledo. There are definitely some larger organizations, larger corporations who are doing some great things, but there are some Toledoans who run small organizations who have initiatives that are really progressive. And, I hope that we maximize that potential. And also, I think I am someone who really what I want to see is that as we have these new and exciting things that are developing in the area, I just want to make sure that we're doing the best for Toledo residents.
Gun violence has increased during the pandemic, specifically involving young people. Do you believe that the city's response to gun violence should change?
I do think there needs to be increased awareness and attention to it, as well as resources. And again, I'll say this: I think what's been hard, first of all, in witnessing this, is that there are so many families who continue to wake up and their loved ones are not physically with them, especially the most recent death of Tayshawn Smith Davis. I think that's important that we realize that there are people who actually do not physically have their loved ones. But we have to make sure we are providing resources to young people and their families on the front end instead of being so reactive. So I think that's one of the things. We also have to bring awareness to the fact that, we have to do a better job of making sure that our young people are connected to many of the opportunities. And it means all young people. And again, like I said, sometimes there are things that I feel like we should do better, especially in our inner and central cities with African American youth. So those are the things I think, again, with the administration, working with the administration, making sure we are bringing more awareness, but also we are investing the resources necessary to make sure young people have different options, that they have choices. But then also, we also have to talk about gun safety. Let's be honest. Some of these things, yes, some of it comes up in violence, but some of it also comes to gun safety. And how do we as parents have those conversations with our young people?
As the city's economy recovers from COVID-19 shutdowns, what do you think is the city's role in supporting small businesses?
I think the city will play a big role in supporting small businesses. And I think as I've seen a number of opportunities, especially the most recent funds that were released. So I'm really proud of the work that I see, especially with council members who bring to attention people who are struggling, but also the city resources that have been provided. Again, I do think, we're hoping that we have a leadership in our country that recognizes that, we as cities and states can only do so much. And so it's our hope that, as the election unfolds, we have the right leadership in place that will make sure we have additional resources for small businesses.
Recently, council passed a lead ordinance, yet there are still hundreds of kids that are still getting poisoned by lead. Do you think more needs to be added to help ensure that when families either move into a new home or are still living in their same home, that they're protected against getting poisoned by lead? Because a lot of the city's homes were built before lead paint was banned.
So yes, I do think the ordinance that we just passed is just a start. And obviously, I think we are going to build on that on the future. I think you're right that we have to make sure that we know that there are so many, this is not just an issue for our rental properties, and there are some things that we really have to do to expand upon that. But I think the lead ordinance is a great start. And I think that was the most important part. We wanted to get something started so we make sure that we ensure that we start the work of making sure we don't have young people in these properties being exposed to that, because that has lasting impact for generations. So I think it's important that we continue to look at ways that we can expand upon the ordinance, that we can expand upon the resources that we have.
Discussions surrounding police reform have increased over the summer. Do you believe that city council should do more in order to make sure that previously passed police reform legislation is upheld, or that new legislation needs to be passed?
That is a good question. I think I would like us to see us pass legislation that is really more progressive to looking at a new system, a better system. I I know the system we have right now, the criminal justice system, is inherent bias towards African Americans. And so I think it's important as a council, as we move forward, that we have to make sure we're passing legislation that's replacing the kind of old system that we have. In addition to that, it's hard because I think change is not going to come overnight. It's going to take some time. But this is not radical. I think it's important for people to understand we need a better system in place. And I have a son and two daughters. And so I want to make sure when they go out that they are safe. And so I definitely want to make sure that whatever we do pass, whatever we work out, even working with current law enforcement, that is something that's progressive and not just the same way we've always done things.
Toledo City Council Member at Large, Tiffany, Preston, Whitman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jaden.